Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya wal mursaleen. Nabiyana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. My dear brothers and sisters, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And a very good day to all of you joining us from different parts of the world. On behalf of Bahrain Institute of Banking and Finance, the training arm of the Central Bank of Bahrain, I warmly welcome you all to our monthly talk number 3 for the year 2026. We call it Islamic Finance Talk Series. I do pray and hope that you had a blessed Ramadan and a blessed time with your friends and family over the festive period of Eid. And we also pray that we're going through some unprecedented times as we speak, at least in our part of the region. And we do hope and pray that wherever you are safe, your family is safe, and you're keeping well, inshallah. Please remember us in your du'as for people who are outside the region and of course the areas that are affected as well. For those who may not know, BIBF is the training arm of the Central Bank of Bahrain. As a premier provider of financial education and training in the region, we provide education in business and finance through various programs, including undergraduate and postgraduate degree programs, globally recognized professional qualifications, as well as short training programs through 6 centers of excellence that we have. These 6 centers of excellence that we have are banking and finance, Islamic finance, insurance, digital transformation and project management, leadership and management, as well as the academic center. And of course, the Islamic Finance Center. When it comes to Islamic finance, we've worked with global stakeholders in enhancing their capacity and uplifting their knowledge within the Islamic banking and finance industry, not just in Bahrain or the region, but globally. We have specialized certification programs that are equal to a professional degree or a master's degree. We have executive management programs, as well as short training programs that we are very proud to offer for the development of Islamic banking and finance. One executive program that I would like to mention is the Cambridge Islamic Finance Leadership Program that we host at the Cambridge University. It's an independent program of the university, but it is hosted every year to enhance or develop leaders within the Islamic banking and finance industry. I won't talk more about the BI of our institute. For more information, you may want to visit our website, bibf.com. My name is Dr. Rizwan Malik. I head up the Islamic Finance Center, and we are the host for this Islamic Finance Talk Series that takes place on a monthly basis at BIBF, but of course for the benefit of the global audience as it's a virtual program. The aim of this program is to enhance understanding, foster meaningful dialogue, facilitate exchange of knowledge, and explore evolving landscape of the industry. As we embark on this journey, we hope to inspire innovation, promote best practices, and contribute to the sustainable development of the Islamic banking and finance. We have been organizing these Islamic Finance Talk Series for about 18 months now. And for this year, we have so far covered developments. We decided to cover some of the developments in various regions across the globe. We have so far covered this year the growth and development in North America. We have last month covered growth and development in Islamic banking and finance in Africa. And this month, as we're speaking today, we would like to cover the development of Islamic banking and finance in Russia and the Central Asian countries. Russia and Central Asian countries are playing an important role in the growth of Islamic banking and finance, and they are very important when it comes to the global development of Islamic banking and finance industry. As you may know, Russia, the mainland Russia, the Russian Federation hosts about 20 million Muslim population, and together with the Central Asian countries, the total Muslim population is about 100 million. So there is an 100 million population that we aim to serve in the Russia and the CIS countries, and that's why the growth and development that is coming out of these markets is very important, and we aim to support this growth through capacity building, through enhancing infrastructure, through adoption of standards, through the rules and regulations that are practiced in, or the best practices that are offered in other parts of the world. So as we speak, Islamic finance is undergoing a major shift in the Russian Federation, starting from the experimental pilots to formal legal integration across Russia and the Central Asian countries. Since September 2023, Russia has operated a formal partnership financing, as they call it, the Islamic finance pilot in 4 Muslim-majority regions. This includes Tatarstan, Bashkortostan, Chechnya, Dagestan. So the experiment was meant to end in 2025, but it has been extended for another 3 years. We expect an Islamic bank to open up soon in 2026. More recently, in Russian Federation, in Kazan in particular, AOFI has opened its first regional office outside the Kingdom of Bahrain. That's an important recognition of the region, as well as the development of Islamic banking and finance in that part of the world. Other key markets in the Central Asian countries include, of course, the Kazakhstan, which is a regional market leader. In 2026, a new banking law has been adopted. It allows traditional banks to open Islamic windows. Uzbekistan is another important country which adopted a landmark Islamic banking law in February 2026, this year. And then we have, of course, Kyrgyzstan, which maintains a mature regulatory framework and was an early adopter of Islamic banking windows in the region. We had the pleasure of visiting Kyrgyzstan during Ramadan, and where we delivered a very comprehensive 1 week-long training across 4 programs. And we are very keen, we're very happy to see the interest that people have in the development of Islamic banking and finance, and the level of understanding that people have in Kyrgyzstan. So there are various other, of course, countries that are also enhancing or assisting in the growth of Islamic banking and finance. To learn more about these developments, we have put together the talk for this month, that is we are having today, and we're very pleased to have Dr. Madina Kalimulina, who is an associate professor at the School of Finance, HSE University, and an executive secretary of the Russian Association of Experts in Islamic Finance. Sister Madina is a leading expert in Islamic finance. I had the pleasure of knowing her for at least a decade now, and she serves as an associate professor, as she is a certified Sharia advisor and auditor, the CSAA program from AOFI. She has an active contributor to Russian halal and Islamic finance market development, and serves as a member of the expert council under the Russian government for the partnership finance experiment. She is well known for her hard work, commitment, her rigor to continue to grow the Islamic finance sector in Russia. She more recently, she has played an active role in the translation of AOFI Sharia standards into the Russian language, which I was very happy to assist in some shape and form. And she is an active academic as well as researcher in Islamic banking and finance. She has lectured in Islamic finance at various universities, including University of Suburbank, HSE, as well as she has written more than 20 researches and publications in different researches across the globe. So we are very pleased to have her with us, inshallah, for this talk. She will share with us the development in Islamic banking and finance in Russia and the CIS for that sense. So before I pass on the platform to Sister Madina, just some housekeeping rules. The session is only about an hour long. We have left the last 15 minutes for the Q&A tab, so for the Q&A session. You have been muted and the chat is disabled. However, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A tab to ask questions, and we will be very happy to answer them towards the end of the presentation. If you would like to ask a question by voice, please raise your hand, and we will, depending on the time, we may allow asking by voice as well. So, please use the Q&A tab in the meantime so we can, ensure that your questions are entertained. And we will try and make sure that if your hand is raised, we'll try and ensure that your question is heard, and we would, of course, unmute the mic at that time. There are no, the session is recorded. It will be made available on our YouTube platform as well, on the IBF YouTube platform, for you to refer to it afterwards. So without further ado, I have the honor, with utmost honor and pleasure, I would like to welcome Sister Medina to take us through the presentation. Sister Medina, maybe you would like to share the presentation slides and take it forward from us. Thank you very much for spending your time, and we are very happy to have you with us, and very keen to learn about the development of Islamic banking and finance in Russia in greater detail. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rizwan. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to all of you. I hope I'm audible. Please confirm the sound is okay. Thank you so much. First of all, yes, many thanks for inviting me and allowing me to share with you the topic of the developments of Islamic finance in Russia and CIS. And I'm very happy to see a number of experts from the region. You are very much welcome, and I hope that we will have a really interesting discussion in the end. Dr. Rizwan already mentioned a lot about myself, so I'm not going to speak about it. Today we'll speak briefly about regional market overview and brief country focus of each of the countries mentioned. And we'll speak a little bit in more detail about Islamic finance in Russia, the country which I represent, and have been involved in a number of developments. And then I suggest to switch to the discussion. First of all, the market overview. Brother Rizwan already mentioned the countries involved in the development of Islamic finance in the region. Starting from 1990s, all the mentioned countries have joined OIC and IDB, and Russia also joined as an observer in 2005. And each of the country, although they represent the same region, the Central Asian region, they have followed different models and approaches towards Islamic finance development. Particularly, Kyrgyzstan have started from a pilot project with on the basis of one of the banks, Eco Bank, which has been transformed already into a full-fledged Islamic bank. Kazakhstan started in 2009. They adopted an Islamic banking law, and Tajikistan also developed a separate Islamic banking law in 2014. When it comes to the Uzbekistan, it seems to be the last to join this movement from among these countries, because we have some other countries that haven't been officially involved so far. So Uzbekistan have announced a new course in around 2020, and they have started from a number of amendments for microfinance, Islamic microfinance. And now, as Dr. Rizwan mentioned, in 2026, the new law has been adopted by the parliament, and everyone is waiting when finally it will be signed by the president, so that the new stage of the market development will start for Uzbekistan. And Russia in 2023 have followed another approach. It selected the approach of an experiment. So this is a pilot project based on the law 2217. The law on the experiment, which is a special regime for partnership finance. So it was developed for 2 years, and then the second stage have been prolonged in 2025 for another 3 years. So we are now on the second stage of this development, and I'll speak about it in more detail. When we speak about market size, it's a little bit tricky, and because the estimates are always approximate, and the methodology used in each case is different. And some of the countries, they only provide data on the Islamic banking assets, while the other countries may also estimate the whole Islamic financial market industry. So here are some estimates based on the report of Eurasian Development Bank published last year. Those who are interested in the market, I strictly recommend you to study this report because it studies each of the markets, each of the countries except for Russia, and provides the detailed analysis of different aspects of Islamic finance development and all the forecast. But still, we have Kyrgyzstan, for example, which already has shown an explosive growth during the last couple of years, and it already exceeded the forecast of EDB for 2028, showing greater figures. So we really see a rapid growth of Islamic finance industry in Kyrgyzstan, and these are the figures for for the end of 2025, published on the website of the National Bank of Kyrgyzstan. And it's not speaking that it's only the banking assets, not counting other types of activities. For other countries, I leave here the forecast of EDB, except for Russia. These are also approximate data based on the current market developments and various estimates. We will also speak about it a little bit in detail on further slides. But overall, we can say that the total market of CIS, the Central Asian and Russia, already exceeded 1.3 billion USD. And according to some very conservative estimates, they are going to reach 6.6 billion in 2028. But please keep in mind that there are differences in methodologies, but I believe that these are approachable, that these are realistic figures because a lot of developments are there in each of the regions, and of course there can be some differences in the real results, but still we can say that this market is developing rapidly with double-digit growth rates, mostly in most cases, and we are going to see a really new, important, growing Islamic finance market. So what are the key contributing factors for the region? First of all, the growing demand and population. This can be seen from as a demand from the consumers and from businesses as well, owned by Muslims and non-Muslims. Yes, according to conservative estimates, the number of Muslims in the region is at least 90 million. Secondly, it's regulators' involvement. We have a very active involvement of many central banks, ministries of finance, and particularly AFSA, the regulator of Astana International Financial Center in Kazakhstan. Third is IOFI and IFSB regional efforts. Dr. Rizwan already mentioned that IOFI opened a regional office in Kazan in December last year, and it's already actively trying to join a number of initiatives in the region. And there have been official translation of IOFI and IFSB standards into Russian for a number of years. The first official translation of IOFI standards, Sharia standards, have been published in 2017. And just early this year, we had the third edition of the full text of IOFI Sharia standards translated into Russian. We see more market participants joining the Islamic finance market from different countries. We see major banks mainly joining through Islamic windows. We don't see many full-fledged Islamic banks. We just have around 3 of them, one in Kyrgyzstan, one in Tajikistan, and one in Kazakhstan. Maybe in Kazakhstan we can say 2, but maybe there will be 1. So we don't see many full-fledged Islamic banks. For Russia, we don't have one, but there are anticipations of full-fledged Islamic bank in Russia as well, because the legislation now allows for such kind of institutions. And we have diversified service providers We have fintech solutions which allow for new products, new service providers, and we see that many markets use these opportunities. And of course, it's important to mention the involvement of multilateral and international institutions. IDB and IDB group institutions have been very active in the region, especially in the member countries since the 1990s. And before there was a specific legislation, IDB group members have financed leasing companies in many countries. And so we see that there has been developments before the special legislation was developed. And we also see that a newcomer, which is the Eurasian Development Bank, has launched its first deal, Islamic finance deal, last year, and will also anticipate a more active involvement of this institution, apart from IDB group member institutions, in the development of Islamic finance in the region. So let's move and discuss briefly each country. Kazakhstan, as it was mentioned already, allowed for Islamic window started from this year. It also worked through a number of legislative developments and amendments throughout the last 15 years, which were amendments for Sukuk, for Takaful and Ijara. Nowadays we have 2 Islamic banks and 1 bank under Astana International Financial Center, as well as another 4 Islamic financial institutions. And there is the necessary developments and infrastructure for corporate Sukuk market emergence. And there have been a number of issuances already at Astana International Exchange. We see growing number of institutions getting licensed under IFC, a number of fintech and advisory solutions. And the fact that Kazakhstan has 2 regulators and 2 jurisdictions for development of Islamic finance allows for the market participants to choose most attractive regulations and environment. And we see that really a number of institutions select IFC for Islamic finance services. But still, the share of Islamic financial assets in Kazakhstan financial market is below 1%. So they have already established some targets to exceed this. And there are anticipations of further developments after the banks join the market through opening Islamic windows specifically. Kazakhstan also runs a number of events in Islamic finance, the main of which is Islamic Finance and Business Forum. It's going to be held this year in May. So if you are interested, you're always welcome to join. And there has been also a number of research to analyze the potential demand. And one of the research states that the demand potential is only in deposits exceeds 6 billion USD. So that is a great way to go and to reach the figures. So some necessary preconditions have been provided by the regulators. So we hope that the market will follow and reach the figures and outreach them. For Kyrgyzstan, we already mentioned that there has been an explosive growth in the assets. There has been also a number of amendments in the regulation throughout the last almost 20 years. They have amended the banking and insurance law. Islamic windows have been initially allowed in Kyrgyzstan. And we can see, if we look at the types of the institutions, we can see that there is 1 full-fledged Islamic bank. There are 5 banks with Islamic windows and 13 microfinance companies with Islamic windows. I think already 5 Takaful operators were in the market. And there have been a number of Sukuk, but Sukuk market unfortunately is not like that active up to now. So there were just a number of issuances. According to the central bank, national bank's data, the share of Islamic financial assets exceeded 5% in the market. For Tajikistan, also the country followed the approach that Islamic windows should be allowed initially. They also made tax amendments in 2022. And I think this is the only country from the region which developed a separate chart of accounts for Islamic financial deals for the accounting. It has one full-fledged Islamic bank, one bank with Islamic window, two microfinance company with Islamic windows, and one leasing company. So the share of the assets is already around 1%. It's continuing growing, and we can also see that there are a number of initiatives and support programs from international financial institutions who also finance separate programs and projects of the market players. For Uzbekistan, we can say that, yes, we've already mentioned that the law is going to be signed by the president, and a number of big banks are getting ready, because before the law they could only do Islamic finance through their subsidiary companies, and a number of such banks already launched a number of products, but now we can say that a number of banks are getting ready to develop Islamic windows. They are preparing the team, they're forming their Sharia committees, they're forming the internal Sharia departments, so they're getting ready for this very active start, and therefore I think that the forecast for Uzbekistan is quite impressive. So they're going almost to be one of the leaders in the market, and I think that they will succeed, inshallah. For Russia, we have pilot regime or experiment regime for partnership banking, and what is very important, starting from this year, the special committee has been formed to develop standards. So it would be standards for partnership finance operations based on IOFI Sharia standards. And now we have already had one meeting to discuss the standard for Murabaha. And it was, I think, a very productive discussion, very important members involved from different regions, for different institutions, including ministries. The standards, once they are developed, are very much expected to contribute further to the market development, because a number of legislative initiatives, a number of amendments really depend on the existence of such official documents as internal standards in the country. Already 10 banks, if I just checked the register of the Bank of Russia, 10 banks, among them are very big federal institutions as well, have joined the experiment. So they already have, most of them have launched the products of Islamic finance products. Two of them already worked before the experiment started. So they had a number of products which were possible under the general legislation, but now, of course, they provide more active. They work more actively and develop more products. And there are over 20 non-bank institutions in the register under the Bank of Russia. And apart from that, there are over 20 companies. This is a conservative assessment, because I think there are almost 50 companies which are working in the market, but they are not members of the experiment, because the membership is voluntarily. So therefore, there can be differences in approaching of the assessment of the market, because the central bank has its own assessment methodology. It's based on the market on the experiment participants. While we understand that there are a number of institutions which provide services under the general legislation. And of course, we also should take into account these figures when we evaluate the market. Regarding the growth, according to my estimates, before the experiment started, the annual growth rates were around 40%. With the joining of large institutions with banking institutions with great funds. Of course, we expect higher growth of the market, but we need still to develop some further legislative aspects in order to make it like more smoothly developing. But still, we will see now in some further slides that the growth is already there and more products appear. So the official term used in all the official documents is partnership finance, and I think it's very good choice of the select on the term, reflecting the the spirit of Islamic finance, because it's the partnership is really there, and the risk approach is different from conventional finance. And Russia has also a very important annual event devoted to Islamic finance and to broader agenda, which is Kazan Forum, which is held annually and is going to be this year also in the middle of May. So let's talk a little bit more about Russia. A lot of you, I think, don't know that Islamic finance appeared in Russia not just in 21st century, but historically Russia had a very strong Muslim community and a very well developed system of awqaf, for example, and some other institutions. So here in the picture you can see one of the examples of such waqf created by the rich Tatar business people, Husainovs. It was in Orenburg in the Urals, and there also has been a newspaper devoted to Islamic finance, which was called Iktisad, and you know that's the meaning of the term, of course. So, and one of the scholars, a very well-known scholar from Russia, Musa Begiev, devoted some of his works also to the concept of Islamic banking. Unfortunately, not many modern scholars, modern researchers know about it, but I want to draw your attention to some of his ideas. He wrote, and of course it was just more than 100 years ago. It was 1917 when his book on zakat involving Islamic banking model as well was published. He wrote that the approach to finance should depend on financial objectives of the clients. And he distinguishes consumer loans taken with the objective of need or ihtiyaj, and he separates it from productive loans taken for profit or kasb. So the consumers who just approach the Islamic bank to get what they really need should be treated differently from those who approach Islamic banks who just want to get more income for the company specifically. If we try to analyze the current market of Islamic finance, can we say that those groups of clients are treated differently? Unfortunately, we see that the margin when we speak about consumer finance and business finance, the margin is nearly the same, and sometimes it can be even higher for consumer finance. While according to the concept and approach of Musa Begiev, those who approach based on the needs should get only interest-free loans, but they should not pay any extra. So this was the approach of Musa Begiev. I think that these ideas should be really taken into account and maybe discussed, and certain approaches could be developed in the modern world. Particularly, for example, now in Russia we have a very good case within this experiment that a Kart Hassan fund has been established by one of the market participants, Amal Financial House. So they provide interest-free loans for those in need. The sum is not quite big. It's maybe 1,200 USD, and the term I think up to 1 year. But this is just a start, and I think it's a very good start. This is within the concept and approach, I believe, of what Musa Begiev spoke about. Now let's move to the developments. So the first institutions which already function until now in Russia have been established in 2010, around these days. And till 2022, there was a non-regulated stage. So there were a number of service providers, and many of them work until now. Some of them joined the experiment, some of them did not. And the market was gradually growing. So the market was developing bottom up. So there were a number of initiatives from many regions. They were developed simultaneously. And in 2022, the legal framework for Islamic finance started being discussed in Russia, and finally, in 2023, the first stage of pilot regime started, and a special expert council has been created under the government. The special law was adopted, and so a number of companies, as I mentioned, entered the experiment, and in 2025 the experiment was prolonged for another 3 years. And what is most important is that the standards should be developed for the market within this period. The basic prohibitions of the federal law on the development of the partnership finance in Russia and on the experiment is that interest-based transactions are prohibited. But of course, this is very tricky because riba is a very broad phenomena. And when we discussed how should we ban riba in the secular law, it's really very complicated to write riba, all aspects related to riba in the secular law. So therefore, in my opinion, only one aspect of riba has been stated, is that the institution cannot get interest-based payment in its financing products, but anyway, this is, I think, important restriction because it shows the specifics of Islamic finance. Apart from that, the law prohibits financing alcohol, tobacco, and weapon, and allows for no discrimination related to religion or ethnic group. Although this type of discrimination is prohibited by general Russian legislation. Among the basic rulings, the law says that the banks are allowed to trade. The basic ratio of operations is introduced. The register has been created by the central bank, who runs the register, who accept the members and who can exclude the members if the requirements are not fulfilled. An expert council has been formed, and the law requires for separate accounting for Islamic finance transactions. So basically, among the positive aspects of the law is that any type of financial and non-financial entity can join the experiment. So therefore, many existing players could join because they were active as non-financial, non-licensed companies. So now they can be the members of the register and also provide reporting and provide the feedback and participate in all the discussions and contribute to the market development. And in 2025, also mutual insurance companies were introduced in the law as potential members of the register. These are some of the figures based on my research of the development of the market before the experiment started. So we can see here very impressive growth annually in assets. And at that time, Russia was approximately, in 2022, approximately between Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan based on assets. But later on, we see that the assets of Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan banks grew significantly, but the Russian market also continues growing. So what were some other new regulations in 2022? The range of operations expanded. There were some advertising requirements introduced, and some monitor indicators of the experiment also introduced. As for the standardization, the responsible organization is the Association of Russian Banks. And the standards, once they are adopted, will be mandatory. And yes, of course, the standards must not contradict the legislation. And yes, some members of the register of the experiment were also included in the committee and in the working groups. So there are 2 working groups working over the standards. So what is a pilot legal framework? What is it about? So we can say that it's kind of a sandbox. It's a method and regime allowing quick and smooth changes to the legislation before the general regime is developed. So actually, the pilot regime includes 4 regions, and many may think that only these 4 regions of Russia can participate in the experiment, you can select customers only from these regions, but this is not so. Actually, the company can be from Moscow, from St. Petersburg, from any other region of Russia. It just needs to create a subsidiary in one of these 4 regions and enter the experiment through this subsidiary. And geographically, it can provide services around all Russia. So there is no limits related to the clients. So the clients can be from all the regions. So, and this is what is done by many participants of the experiment. So international integration, the Bank of Russia already became a member of IFSB and IOFI. And as for the market participants, there are already 10 banks, and there are full-fledged Islamic financial companies. We can say that around 4 of them. And there are regional companies, which is very important. These regional companies are usually the companies created by the state, by regional states, regional authorities, and they have some access to access to the funds, and they can provide financing for on the terms which are like more competitive compared to the general market terms. So this provides the access to a broader number of companies from the regions towards cheaper financing. And we have such examples specifically in Tatarstan, in Bashkortostan, in Chechnya, and also regional guarantee funds. They provide for guarantees for the Islamic finance transactions. They have developed separate products which are like based on Daman, to help and to support the financing of SMEs in the region. But of the register, there are around 50 companies which also work in the field of Islamic finance, but still they're not accounted for in the official data. If we speak about the product range, there are a number of products developed already in Russia and provided to the audience. There are payment cards, card accounts provided by the banks. There are consumer finance based on Murabaha, Musawama, and also BNPL services based on Vakala. Mainly these products are provided by non-banking institutions, but some of the banks already also started providing Murabaha-based financing. There are also SME financing based on Murabaha, Musawama, and Ijara, provided both by banking and non-banking institutions. For real estate and home finance, which requires quite great funds, of course, it's mainly the main accent is on the banks, and 2 banks already provide such type of financing. But apart from them, we also have a number of other companies based on cooperative forms who provide housing financing as well, but on limited funds usually. Project finance, which is mainly important to finance construction and home construction, housing construction, is on the agenda. There have been a number of pilot deals to finance the constructors, but there are also some complicated cases because in Russia there is the requirement related to escrow accounts. So if you sell the real estate to the end consumers before you build it, so all these funds should be kept in the bank special account, which is called escrow account, and you can get the financing from the bank based on this escrow account, but separately on the basis of a separate contract. And in case you fail to finalize your construction, so all the funds from the escrow accounts will go back to the customers. So this this regulation was introduced to protect the final consumers. But if we speak about Islamic finance, so we need to develop the proper products taking into account these regulations. So, and two banks already, they have succeeded in financing the constructors in particularly Akbar's Bank and Sberbank, but these were only pilot deals. I believe that with the entering the experiment of one of the important infrastructure institution and bank, which is Bank Domarev, they are going to develop also to contribute to the development of this deal, and probably in the coming months and years, we will see that the financing of constructors will be more like often and in more figures and in more cases will be. And this is really very important when we speak about the figures, because construction finance is always big figures. And if we succeed in this, and I'm sure inshallah we'll succeed in this, so it will also contribute both to the market figures and also to the home financing opportunities to the end consumers. And also another important aspect here is the state support programs, because nowadays the key rate in Russia is continues to be relatively high, and this means that the access to home financing is really limited, because home financing is usually for a long period of time, up to 30 years, and it really the cost of housing gets really very high. And the people usually don't select this type of financing, but if they have the state, if they can get the state support programs, which will be 3 times or even 4 times lower, so they usually opt for such kind of mortgage financing, but this is not available until now for Islamic finance products. So we hope that with the development of the standards, this also will be available. For interest-free loans based on Card Hassan, they are limitedly practiced by non-bank institutions. I already mentioned a special Card Hassan fund created last year. Banks usually use card for financing as part of other products, but not for separate type of financing. For collective investment based on Murabaha, unfortunately, banks didn't succeed so far, and there could be some necessary further steps related to the standards development on Mudaraba. But for non-bank institutions like cooperative institutions, microfinance institutions, they do provide Mudaraba investment accounts. And we have a number of ETFs provided by management companies, investment management companies. I also want to share with you some inspiring cases when we speak about debt cases and the difficulties from the part of the clients, from the customers. A number of institutions, they provide zakat to those clients who are in difficult situations. They also provide charity-based investment accounts based on Mudaraba. And one of the companies, for example, from Ingushetia, it directs the 25% of its profit to the Waqf. We also have the cases of pilot digital sukuk. So they were issued not on the exchanges, but based on the new legislation related to investment platform and different other types of the platforms. We also have the pilot interbank liquidity management tool launched, also based on a type of investment platform. And according to some reports of the banks, over 30% of the banks' clients for Islamic finance are new to bank. So this reflects the situation that many customers, they didn't use banks before they launched Islamic finance products. The statistics on the bad debt is also quite interesting. We have approached a number of market players. So we can see that a number of companies have no overdue debt payments at all. So this also reflects the approach of the clients and the approach maybe of the strict screening. It can be both. So all the companies, they involve telephone calls and SMS informing when there is non-payment cases. They all involve negotiations. Some of them involve on-site visits in the case of non-payments. And they also, some of the companies, specifically in the Caucasus, but not only there, they work with moral guarantors. So what is moral guarantors? Is that type of reputational guarantee. So they select a person, trustworthy person, who is ready to be a guarantor based on the reputation. But he will not be a financial guarantee in case something goes wrong. But this also a very working tool for many cases of Islamic finance products, specifically in the regions. Only half of the companies, they work with financial guarantors, and also half of the companies, they work with collateral, and only half of the companies appeal to courts. So many companies, they try to avoid even any type of court appeals due to different reasons. In the Caucasus, for example, almost 99% of the companies, they don't and never appeal to court in case there is some problem or issue with the payments. So what are the further steps from the regulator perspective? First of all, the standards on the key products. So first of all, Murabaha and Mudaraba. Second, taxation and state support programs. For taxation in Murabaha, actually this is not quite an issue because many companies use the existing practice of commercial credit. And this, based on this regulation, the margin in Murabaha is not taxable, is not subject to taxes, and many market players, so they follow this regulation. And of course, embracing other market participants and other regions is on the agenda. For now, we have no Islamic insurance products, so this is unoccupied niche. There are limited products related to investment products, specifically collective investment and social finance. And there are also certain potential for venture capital finance, fintech and collaboration, credit cards and their alternatives. And this is not the final list, of course, because the opportunities are in many aspects, in many in many niches of the market. Currently, we're also running a research, which is run by the Russian Association of Experts in Islamic Finance and the Association of Muslim Charity Organizations. So we are analyzing the open data, conduct expert interviews and polls, and make a legal and comparative analysis in order to make the further development of the market smoother and to develop the recommendations. And we're also planning to involve international audience into this research, and we kindly invite all interested to join and to participate. There are also some research questions which could be interesting to discuss. For example, some of the banks during my lectures, they asked me, is it like positive? Is it a good situation that some of the non-banking institutions, they provide lower margins than the banks? So some of them claim that this is not fair competition. And so I think this is a very important question for the broader agenda for the future, whether all the Islamic financial institutions should follow the same margin when developing their products. Of course, the banks, they are closely related to the central bank key rates, and while the other institutions, they are not that closely related and not that closely connected to it. In my personal view, there should be the free space for every type of institutions to develop in their own pace, based on their own opportunities, because banks have a lot of privileges, a lot of opportunities that are not accessible to other types of institutions. And when the key rate is lower, It can be vice versa. So other types of institutions will most often have higher margin. So it's not that it works the same way all the time. So it can change based on the change of the economic and financial situation. Second question is, I think, even broader. Will the regulation based on the interest-bearing system be beneficial to the market in general? And it's very complicated, actually. Any approach, I think, in any jurisdiction, in any market, when we try to develop Islamic banking institution within the existing interest-bearing system, so we see the same problem, issues and mistakes, and we see that many Islamic banks try to follow the same key rates and the same margin, the same approaches as in the conventional system, especially when it is developed within the same institution. But do we really want to develop another type of the market, another type of the financial system and approaches more beneficial to the society? And I think that was also mentioned in the last year speech of Mufti Sheikh Taqi Usmani in the opening of IOFI Sharia conference, that the approaches of Islamic finance should be for all, not only for Islamic banks, but the whole financial system. And to some extent, it really moves in this direction, because we see a number of initiatives which protects the consumers, protects the users of this financial system. But it is just the very start of our way, of our path, because until now the Islamic financial system more heavily relies on the banking system, and the banking system, of course, is built and based on the interest-bearing system. And another, for example, issue is tawarruk. Alhamdulillah, as I see now, the Central Asian region, the Russian region, they don't use tawarruk instrument, except for some, maybe for some limited cases, for some limited examples. But generally, tawarruk is considered to be a very negative practice. And I really hope that this practice will not enter and penetrate the market, and rather other solutions, other opportunities and products will be developed and introduced. Another question, the third question here is, should all Islamic finance institutions be regulated as financial institutions with the related requirements? Because the financial market is different from non-financial. It has its licenses, it has its key rates and other preconditions. So will Islamic finance market follow the same rulings as for the general financial market, or the rulings should be a little bit different? Because I think 90% of the rulings and regulations will be based on connected to the interest. So therefore, if we want to for it to be truly partnership based or Islamic based, we should be active here to develop alternative approaches. So, and here comes some other types of requirements mentioned also in the slides, such as reserves, such as qualification requirements, and some other. Okay, now I think we will leave some time for discussion. We still have, I think, enough time, and I will be really happy to hear your questions and maybe go in more detail towards more interest for you.
Thank you very much, Sister Medina. Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. I must say there's a lot that was covered in this short time span. You took us through the journey of growth and development in not only in Russia, but also the other Central Asian countries. You talked about Russia in particular. You talked about Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, as well as the other regions. So I think that is very important and very insightful, I must say. And I for once I heard this for the first time, some of these developments, and it's very interesting. It also continues to motivate us that there are developments, and the developments are in the right direction for the market to further enhance. So the banking laws, the new banks and the new initiatives that are out there, the regulators who are very serious. I know that even the Central Bank of Russia who I had the pleasure of meeting a few times, have attended some of the industry conferences and events, and they've been following the development in Islamic banking and finance for some time now. So they're taking it very serious. So that's a very important direction, and
that's true.
So it's also insightful that the committee has been formed, and the committee has also held the first meeting to discuss the standard on Murabaha. I think those are very important developments. We're very thankful for you to taking us through those. I think if time is not on our side, otherwise this would take even longer for us to discuss. Now, to make it more interesting, as you rightly said, and to hear or to answer what our colleagues would like to ask. And we are very honored to have a very diverse set of colleagues with us. We have some Sharia scholars, we have seasoned professionals and leaders in Islamic banking and finance who have joined us. I'm very thankful to all of you for spending your time and joining this talk. And the idea of this is talk, as I said, is to stimulate new discussions, some thought-provoking ideas, and hopefully we will push forward the industry in some shape and form, not just only through this talk, but also the discussion that happened here. We take them forward and continue to work on them after that. So I have some questions that have been put forward, Sister Medina, on the Q&A tab. If you allow me, I will take this, maybe take very quickly the questions first, and then we will maybe come to the hands raised. So if there are any people who would like to ask by voice, please feel free to raise your hand, and we will come to you in a moment, inshallah. So I'll Q&A tab. So the first question that I have in particular, we've got Sheikh Abdul Qadir Thomas. Very glad to have you here, sir. I think he put a comment saying that what you were showing earlier gives a concept similar to his contemporary Muhammad Ali, translator of the Quran's meaning into English in 1920. So the Russian academic who actually worked in early 19th century on some of the concept, Sheikh Abdul Qadir is just telling us that his concept is similar to Muhammad Ali, the translator of Quran. So if you want to further enhance or talk about it, Sheikh Abdul Qadir, please let us know. Feel free to raise your hand, and we'll allow you to ask, highlight that further by voice. We've got Brother Muzaffar. His question is, and I'll read it out. Do you think that CIS countries are only adopting some laws on Islamic finance for the sake of having an alternative source of funding instead of creating real broader conditions for Islamic finance industry, Islamic capital markets, Thaqaful market, non-banking financial institutions, and other institutions, universities alike? I observe that these countries are trying to diversify their debts from external parties, therefore adopting the laws, I assume. And he shared an example, for instance, Kazakhstan market, due to lack of ecosystem, only 2 Islamic banks were there, and they were not able to show the expected results.
Yes, thank you very much, Brother Muzaffar, for your question. I think that there are always two main objectives. So one is international funds and funds attraction, and the other is catering for the consumers and the demand in the local market. And it's difficult to say when and which objectives is bigger and more important. I think it depends on the particular decision makers. For particular decision maker, of course, the objective that you mentioned, the attraction of international funds, is number one, while the other is mostly goes for marketing. It's just for the sake of the to make it popular in the country. But I think that in the case of Uzbekistan and Russia particularly, and also for Kyrgyzstan, I can say that there is really very important and growing demand, and it is there. And I also see the question about if there has been any assessment of the demand in Russia, for example. There has been a number of research and assessments, including more recent poll by the Ministry of Economy of Tatarstan, by the research arm of the Ministry of Finance of the Russian Federation. So they all show certain interest and demand specifically in the Muslim regions. But I'm personally a little bit skeptical about demand polls, because it depends on how you formulate a question. Usually the results will be very dependent on that. For example, if you make a poll and ask the question, are you ready to lose your funds if you invest based on Islamic finance methodology? And of course, most of the people, especially when they don't know specifics of Mudaraba, they will say, "No, I'm not ready." But if we cater the specifics of Mudaraba for the companies which mainly operate based on Murabaha financing, of course, we see that the risk there is minimal, because they work professionally and they have certain criteria for the selection of the people and businesses they finance. Well, coming back to the question of Muzaffar, I think that yes, of course, there are two types of objectives. They are always there, and but I think that only this objective will never goes alone. So it always goes with a objective to provide access to the Muslim people. And we know very well that there is huge Muslim population, and there is huge demand in all our countries, including Russia, for Islamic financing. Of course, creating the real broader conditions for Islamic finance is very important, and it reflects the real underlying internal intentions of the people making decisions. If we just make the law for attracting funds and stop there, of course, it will not allow for development of the related infrastructure, and maybe there will be like some problems in the market development. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sister Madina. And as you rightly mentioned, there are different stakeholders as important as different players in the market and the economy. And each player has a different, of course, interest, both business and otherwise. So for sure, there might be some interest coming in from a political side, and as well as the others demand-driven. The important thing is that the overall economy should achieve its objectives and the purpose. And of course, some of them might be there only for their purpose oriented, which might be, of course, as maybe Brother Muzaffar mentioned, maybe. But at the same time, there might be other stakeholders who are really there for the real purpose, and they might achieve that as well. So as long as the overall economy benefits and different stakeholders benefit, I think that's what would be important. And of course, many Muslim minority countries have opened up to Islamic banking and finance. So the real purpose behind them, of course, it would be the promotion of Islamic banking and finance. And we would like to think that they would like to offer the Islamic banking alternatives in their markets, providing an equal opportunity for everybody to practice their financial affairs in line with their faith or otherwise. So, of course, there are many other markets that have opened up Islamic banking and finance, the UK, the South Africa, the US, and others around the globe. I think we've got another question from Brother Muzaffar, and he's asking for what is your opinion on the possibility of establishment of pure Sharia-compliant financial institutions, which mainly focus on partnership-based contracts instead of debt-based contracts? Nowadays, the majority of Islamic banks enjoy mainly debt-based contracts and don't want to take risk, which is main differentiator the Islamic financial institutions from conventional institutions.
Yes, I think this is actually a dream of many supporters of Islamic finance, but there is always a possibility. I believe that this depends on the real desire of those who have access to the funds and who can manage their funds in a proper way to establish a certain company, to develop the products, but there always will be specific risks related to this type of the institution. So it's very important to think over where the funds will be taken from again and again, and what will be approach to the risks, to the selection of the particular projects, particular companies to invest. And yeah, of course, if we speak about consumer finance, then we'll have to make it interest-free only in this case. So I think that it is possible, but it depends on the strong community. If there is a strong community who shares the same ideals and understanding of the Islamic finance, it can work, because it should be supported both by the investors and by the clients. Because not all the clients, not all the businesses want to share their profit. This is also the issue with partnership-based Islamic financing. But we can see the example of Pakistan, for example. They do like running musharaka financing, but there are also criticism around it. But still, they have developed a certain approach, a certain different approach to tawarruk, to murabaha. So they do murabaha, so they do musharaka, and its share in the portfolio for running musharaka, I think, is almost 20 to 25% in some of the cases.
Thank you very much, Mr. Medina. I think you answered this question, but I'll repeat again, coming from Muzaffar. When do you think the Islamic benchmark rate will be introduced? $1 million question. I think Reuters introduced this, Thomson Reuters introduced this some time back. That did not fly well. And there are still practices going on in the industry that are helping in the development of the Islamic benchmark rate. I know for once, before Sister Medina, you may want to add to it, that AOFI, for example, is working on developing an alternative benchmark for the Islamic bank and finance industry, which is linked to the real economy. That is one practice that I am aware of. But maybe Sister Medina, there are other that you are aware of.
I think my reflection on that is, first of all, we should need to think about the purposes of this Islamic markup benchmark or markup bench, because in some cases it will not support the market, because, as I mentioned, based on the Russian market example, one single markup will not work and support all the markets. Sometimes every type of the institution, they should be left free to select their own approach towards margin, calculation and determination. So therefore, I would start from the question is what would be the objectives and how we're going to use it, and then maybe think over about what should be it based on. Unfortunately, I didn't study deep the concept of Islamic benchmarks and the existing solutions in the market. But if you are interested to continue this discussion, maybe we can discuss it separately, and I'll try to have a look on the suggestions, and maybe because this is really, we'll come to this question in each of our markets, so we need to think it over as well. Thank you.
Sure. It's a common question that has been going on for decades now. So we've got a question, a comment and a question from Sheikh Abdul Qadir Thomas. One of the key features that has made Islamic home finance in the US is the support of secondary market entities linked to the government. This has led to a market size of $30 billion with annual growth exceeding $1 billion. Does the Russian Federation offer similar support to home finance providers, even if it's conventional at the moment?
Yes, currently there is a great amount of support to home financing. It's only for conventional finance. Now, if we don't speak about maternity capital, because we have a separate type of finance for supporting the families. So once the child is born, or the second child is born, there is a maternity capital which is provided to the family, and that can be used, for example, for home, to buy a home or for education, but there's limited opportunities to use it. And this works for Islamic finance as well. But for other state support programs for home financing, it works for conventional market, and it depends. Yes, it works through the banks only. It works for the banks only, and it is like it based on subsidizing the interest rate. So the state subsidizes the interest rate of the bank which finances mortgage for a family. And the special support programs are available for families with a number of children, and for some types of specialists working in specific industries, and I think, yeah, and in some remote areas there are also some support programs to support the people living there. So I think that probably there is an opportunity to study how did you implement these support programs for Islamic finance, but specifically if it is linked to the interest rate, because if it is linked into the interest rate initially in the US, it will be interesting how you did it for Islamic finance. And if you share this experience, it will be interesting.
Okay. The next two questions are probably linked, and I think you maybe alluded to them already. One is by Brother Isa Rayami, and he says, thank you very much for your presentation. Apologies if the presentation has already addressed the following points, as I have missed some of the slides. His question is, in light of the current developments in Islamic finance in Russia and the CIS countries, do you consider that the growth in this sector is primarily driven by genuine domestic demand for Sharia-compliant financial products, or is it largely motivated by broader financial diversification strategies and the objective of attracting capital from Gulf and other markets? Moreover, how might this underlying driver influence the long-term sustainability of Islamic finance businesses and the robustness of Sharia governance framework within the markets?
Oh, thank you very much for the question. As I can see, as I mentioned already, there are both objectives are there, and different types of institutions, they follow different. They may pursue one or the second one or both objectives. As I can see currently in the Russian market, it is mostly demand driven. So the demand is higher than the suggestion of the Islamic finance services, and this allows for the market to grow. But at the same time, while we have interviewed a number of institutions providing Islamic finance services, we can see just for one example of institution which mentioned that it doesn't see the proper demand. But if we look deeper into the situation, we can always find the solutions and answers to that, why the demand in their case is lower compared to some of the competitors. And here comes such aspects as usability, as the attitude to the clients, as the approach and marketing, and all the different factors. But generally, I would say that the demand is quite high and it's growing, and it strictly relates also and connected to the understanding of the products, because the more audience understands the difference, that there are no penalties, no fines, and the attitude is different. Of course, many institutions and clients will select Islamic finance. For those who opt for attracting capital, I think they can do it without any specific Islamic finance legislation in many cases, and they do it and they continue doing it. But most types of the experiment participants, they cater both for the clients, for the local clients, and probably some of them are interested in establishing of cooperation and enhancing the cooperation with the relative interested investors from abroad.
Thank you very much. And Brother Isa Rayami, we delivered a week-long training program in Kyrgyzstan just 2 weeks ago, and we had the pleasure of meeting about 80 colleagues from the industry. And we see that the demand was real in terms of their understanding, wanting to understand Islamic banking and finance. And those who had some understanding, we could see, the level of understanding that they had and how they wanted to, serve the industry. So in particular, when it comes to Kyrgyzstan, there's a lot of demand coming in from this Islamic microcredit institutions. So there is demand to replicate that in a Sharia compliant manner. And the demand is there to set up Sharia compliant Islamic microcredit institutions. So there is demand, and there is a different levels of understanding that is there in these regions, of course, and the demand is real. So I can tell you by myself, we saw it on the ground, the demand and the level of understanding that the people have. So the next question that we have: what supports demand for Islamic finance in Russian Federation? Has any credible demand survey? I think you've already answered that. Many surveys have been done by Asian Development Bank. I remember you mentioned about some Ministry of Finance initiatives as well. But I think there have been few international initiatives in terms of trying to quantify the demand for Islamic banking finance in the Federation and the Central Asian countries. We've got another question from Abdul Fatah, and he says, Walaikum salam, excellent presentation and interesting insights. Can you please share some experience about Kurd Hassan performance in the region that you have covered?
Yes, as I mentioned last year, a special Kurd Hassan fund have been established in Russia, in Tatarstan, and since it has only half a year of its operation, it's difficult until now to evaluate its performance. Maybe we'll be able to do it in 1 year time. But what specific can I outline is that Kurd Hassan, like institutions, is something new to the legislation of Russia. Maybe the same as many other jurisdictions, because we have either commercial institutions or charity-based non-commercial institutions. If we speak about charity-based institutions, they are not allowed to give out loans. So they are only allowed to give out for charity. So their funds are not going to be refundable. So if we speak about Kurd Hassan, this is something new, and it really there really has been a number of discussions and questions when the colleagues, as they shared the insight, they try to register such an institutions. But thanks to the experiment of the special legislation for partnership finance, they finally succeeded in doing it. So they made a non-for-profit institution, and it gets the funding from donators. So the funding is not refundable, but they are financing based on Kurd Hassan. So this is their approach. I believe that there is really a space for Islamic social finance, and there should be more institutions which combine the principle of Islamic finance and social support principles.
Thank you very much. We've been asked the question by Brother Khalil, and he says, do you have a vision about the implementation of Islamic interbank money market and the Sharia compliant version of that?
I think that this is still, this is still our future to discuss it within our markets for Russia and the Central Asia. And of course, there should be the direct involvement of the central bank if I speak about the approach to the central bank instruments. For general Islamic interbank money market, it's possible, and there has been a pilot deal in Russia when one of the institutions have financed the other institutions' current activities through the investment platform. So this type of development of financial technologies, and we have a special regulation for investment platforms, and we have other types of platforms for specific types of technologies, financial products. So this allows for quick arrangement and fulfillment of such kind of interbank transactions always, although both those two institutions were non-banks. So these were Islamic financial institutions and who have created through a third platform the interbank, so-called interbank financing. And I think that fintech and modern platforms provide for new opportunities in this regard.
Sure. Thank you very much. We've got two hands raised. We are up for our allocated time. But if you allow us, we'll quickly go to these hand raised and try and ask them very quickly, and then we can probably conclude. So, Brother Saif, you've got your hand raised. You're allowed to ask by voice. If you can kindly unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yes. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. I found the presentation very insightful. I'm actually based in India, and my question is on your tax treatment you mentioned on the Muraba. I think if you could show that slide again, or it doesn't matter. But you mentioned in something that there's no issue with tax treatment. So, do your laws in Russia allow you to treat like say a Muraba transaction where it's a sale transaction? So that do you get any tax benefit? Yeah, as you have in other places which have.
Yeah, the question is clear, so I'll try to answer it. The Russian Civil Code has a special article for commercial credit. What is a commercial credit? Is when you sell some item to somebody, and the payment is not done in advance. The payment is not done at once. So it's on deferred payment basis. So and in this case, there is no VAT, no value added tax for the margin. So in this case, the margin is the benefit which is got by the seller in this particular transaction. So we have made parallels with the Murabaha transaction because Murabaha is nearly the same. So you sell the item and you get payment on a deferred paid basis. So and we have made, and some of the colleagues have made a request to the Ministry of Finance to explain whether we can use Murabaha-based transactions based on the same approach as commercial credits. But actually, if the product is structured accordingly, it really works. So and this is used by a number of market participants. So because based on this regulation in the civil code, based on the commercial credit, sometimes in the contract itself, they stated that there is no value added tax to the margin because of the article, I think, 873, if I'm not mistaken, of the civil code of the Russian Federation. So and there has been no tax issues and no questions from the tax agency so far as I know. But of course, to make the things smoother, there has been developed a list of amendments for the tax related to the taxation, and it's under discussion now. But generally, the issue of Murabaha and VAT in the margin, it's settled through this approach. If you have a similar article in your civil code, so maybe you can use the same approach as well.
Thank you very much, Sister Medina. We have got another hand raised, Nurhan. Would you like to ask your question? You have unmuted yourself, but we can't hear you. Nurhan, is there any question? Apologies, but we are unable to hear you, although I can see this, the mic is unmuted.
Yes, unfortunately.
Maybe you want to put a question in the Q&A tab. Okay. I think colleagues are thanking you for your presentation. So Medina, do you think there is any possibility of Islamic asset management in Russian Federation? I think this is ongoing as we
a lot
speak.
of opportunities, yes, and yes, for sure. A lot of interested investors to do it Islamic way.
Wonderful.
I think we had a question from Nurjan in the chat.
Oh, is there a question? Okay.
Yes, Nurjan finally wrote a question in the chat. Centralized Sharia board. Yes, a very important maybe question. Yeah, for Russia, due to the fact that this is a secular state and no Islamic-based term or phrases can be used in the legislation related to Islamic finance. So we use the term of partnership finance. So in this case, I think the approach which is already followed is the standards. And the standards will also take into account the position of the Sharia experts from different regions and position of the market players and all the rest. And this could be the solution. For some of the other countries, yes, maybe the centralized Sharia boards in Central Asia will work, but probably in the initial stage, in the early stage of development, it will be too early to create a centralized Sharia board with the objective to make this single rules for everyone and the strict conditions and requirements to the members of the Sharia board. I think there should be some room left for developing different approaches and different models based on, but given the fact that all market players follow the same basic rules, but if we make it too strict from the very beginning, sometimes it doesn't leave space for the development in the future, for the development of specific national traditional approaches, taking into account the specifics of the market. But in some aspects, yes, some advisors to the regulators are required. And this could be done by so-called national Sharia boards or some advisory committees within the different regulators and authorities. But with regard to the national Sharia boards, we have different models. For example, some of the countries, the boards are created under the central banks. In some other countries, they are created under the association of market players, such as in Turkey, for example, they have the Sharia board under the market association. In some other countries, we have national Sharia boards under the religious institutions, but we should take into account that not in every country the religious institution is the only one. For example, in Russia, we have a number of Muslim religious institutions. But we all can cooperate and discuss and share our views when we talk about the standards. I hope I addressed the question. I hope you got the answer. And I think there is another question also.
Really? I was going to ask Sister Medina, is there a central bank, is there a central Sharia board established in any of the region? Is it there in the...
No, I think not that I heard of. Not that I heard of. There are requirements to Sharia compliance. Yes, some of the central banks, they introduced requirements to the qualification and experiments of the Sharia board members. I think it is in Tajikistan, in Kyrgyzstan. Not sure about Kazakhstan. For Russia, no, there are no requirements so far, but rather that the regulators, they just get the feedback from the markets on how they regulate this, how they approach these issues based on each institutions. And I didn't speak about it today, but in Russia we have really diversified approach to Sharia compliance. Some of the companies, they create their own Sharia boards, but this is the minimum of the companies. Most of the companies, they just have one Sharia consultant. Some of the companies, they have work based on outsource. So they invite a professional company who establishes the board functions for them. And some of the really small companies, I mean, like startups in Islamic finance, fintech, they just maybe are based on their own knowledge until they just get to a certain stage of development when they can afford like having a board or at least one expert on a constant basis.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. One last question, maybe. One last question, maybe, is the challenge that we have around the language at times when it comes to, I understand and I know that mostly is the, of course, activities happen in the Russian language. And how do you find that as a challenge, or now we're very quickly overcoming this? I had the pleasure of delivering this week-long training in Kyrgyzstan, and it was very effective. We had live translator working on this, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on are we overcoming this challenge already, or it is work in progress?
For international trainings and the language issues, I have come to a conclusion that Russia has developed quite a big expertise in Islamic finance. And when we organize trainings or courses, and for example, I have my course in the HC University for upgrade of skills, and there are a number of other courses run in different institutions and universities. The best option is to give the knowledge on the products by the local experts, and to invite the international experts for their experience and for the questions and for other sessions which cannot be covered or has not been covered by the local experts. Because I have come across a number of like trainings when international experts comes and talks about the very, very basics. The same basics could be covered by the local experts in the mother language quicker and more efficiently in some cases. And a lot of funds are like used to invite an international high-level expert just to cover the basics. I think it's not efficient. It's better to cover all the basics by the local ones, and then invite the higher level international experience audience to cover, I mean, like more progressive issues, more difficult issues, and discuss it on the for the level of training and education.
Excellent, excellent. So we are. Thank you very much.
Just a quick answer to Just a quick answer to Nurjan's question, whether religious institutions of Russia somehow involved. Yes, some of them, because we have a number of institutions, but specifically those which work in the regions involved in the experiment, the 4 regions. Specifically, I would say these 4, or maybe specifically 3 of them are more active. They are involved, but the religious institutions, like, they are just one of the players, one of the parties in this process, because as I mentioned, the market has developed its expertise throughout the last 15 or more years, and independent experts, specialists in Sharia, and the representative of the religious institutions, they like sit and work over the same standards, over the same issues, and they all have the authority and opportunity to be involved. So I would say that there is no specific inclusive or exclusive role of religious institutions, but of course their participation is also important to involve and to disseminate knowledge about Islamic finance, because religious institutions are involved in khutbahs, in many events, and they work with imams, and it's very important that every Muslim who goes to Friday prayers, he from time to time he listens some khutbahs about financial aspects, about riba, about gharar, and about other aspects, so that he can also implement this in his daily life. But unfortunately, until now, not every khutbah is not every imam is capable of providing khutbahs on these aspects, and I think this is also something we should work on for the future for all our CIS markets probably. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sister Medina. I think this was very enlightening, to say the least. I think the engagement through the Q&A and, of course, the presentation has definitely provided some rare insights into the region and the growth of the region. I am for sure one that relates to this region as a very important market for the Islamic banking finance, and I believe that most of the growth for Islamic banking finance is going to come from from these developing countries when it comes to Islamic banking finance, and the other region, which is the African region. So we closely monitor this, the region, and we follow the developments that happen on the ground. We would like to thank you very much for sparing your time and sharing the insights and the knowledge and the wisdom that you have and the role that you play. Of course, we are here to support if any assistance that we can provide to support your initiatives. And the initiatives on the ground in the CIS and Russian Federation, we will be very happy to do that. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank a very distinguished set of colleagues who joined us from different parts of the world to benefit from this knowledge sharing session. Given that we organize this on a monthly basis, we would appreciate you joining us on a regular basis so you can benefit from the key topics that we put together on various topics in the Islamic bank and finance industry. So once again, I would like to thank you very much, Sister Medina, for sparing your time and being with us. And inshallah, we do hope that we can have you in the future sessions as well, covering some other aspects of the topic, of various topics. And we hope that we will have our other colleagues, inshallah, join us as well. If you would like to learn about the training programs that BIBF offers, please feel free to visit our website. As I promised, we will put this recorded session on our YouTube channel for you to refer to afterwards, with the consent of Sister Medina as well. And of course, Sister Medina, some of the colleagues have requested for your presentation to be shared. So with your permission, we will share with the presentation as well. So with all of that, I would like to thank you all very much for joining us. And inshallah, I look forward to having you in the future sessions. Anything from your side, Sister Medina? Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure and very professional audience, very interesting questions. Indeed, a lot of food for further thought and discussion. Thank you. It was a pleasure for me. Jazakallah khairan.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Medina. Thank you very much, everybody. Inshallah, we look forward to seeing you. Again, wherever you are, keep safe, and inshallah, we will be in touch. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.